Is there a doctor in the house? Okay, so we continue with our review of Series 11 with Episode 5. Now I've got to make sure I pronounce this right. I hope I get this right. The Tsuranga Conundrum. If that's not correct, please somebody correct me, because that's how I read it. I presume the T is silent. Okay, right. This is going to be really hard to do, this one. So we're in the 67th century, I think, and we're scavenging on a planet looking for bits and pieces, and the Doctor stands on a sonic mine. Boom, off it goes. Next thing we know, we're on a medical ship, various injuries. Certainly the Doctor's got one that she carries through the whole episode, holding her side in a lot of pain. Talks about a pancreas or something or other. A bit like an ambulance, I suppose. And we come across a creature called a pating. A pating. Yes, that's what it's called, a pating. What would I call it? I'd call it a gremlin. And so, yes, so this creature, this pating, gets on this ambulance ship and decides it's going to start tearing it apart bit by bit. We get a character who's jettisoned off the ship, and all the escape pods are either not working or they're jettisoned, and so they're stranded. So we've also got the danger of that the message coming back from the planet, or the space station, I think it is they're going to. Space station that they're going to is making sure that everything's okay. They've scanned it, so they kind of know something's wrong, and if there's some sort of contamination or there's a problem, then they will destroy the medical ship. So we've got the danger of a bomb going off that needs to be diffused. We've got this gremlin character, Pating, running about. I'm sure you'll see them in your toy shops sometime near Christmas. What I would say is, certainly for British viewers, is that what you've got here is an episode of Space Casualty. And also a harkening back to second Doctor stories. This is a base under siege story. We've got a lot of characters being introduced, and it's all a bit of a jumble straight away that settles down in kind of the second act. But the first act is very sort of all over the place. You've got the Doctor feeling injured, running around trying to ask questions, trying to sort out what the problem is, and trying to get back to the TARDIS, which seems to be missing again. So if we get to the specifics now of why I've called it a kind of space casualty. Casualty usually has some kind of medical problem. Of course it has medical problems. It's called Casualty, okay? Set in the accident and emergency department of a hospital. I feel this is the same, but in space, okay? And weekly you get sort of 3 or 4 storylines interweaving together over the course of, pay attention, over the course of an hour. Okay, I'll repeat that again, over the course of an hour. This is 50 minutes with the plot having to set up so that you've got everything that's going on in the story so that you can get it going. In Casualty, we already know the scenario. So in Casualty, you have a hospital that's that we all know from weeks and weeks and weeks of stories. So we're not in a new setting, Okay, they just introduce new characters and bring them together in the story, and they're able to skip over a load of parts of that because you understand how it works. But you follow sort of through maybe 3, maybe 4, it depends on what they're doing that week, different ideas and different stories in there. This is kind of the same. So what have we got? We've got a male pregnancy, and this helps Ryan and Graham to explore father issues. There's a scene with Yaz and Ryan where they talk about Ryan's father, and we get a little bit more information there than we've had before. It's just pushing that story along a little bit more. What's known as a Neuro Pilot, and it's a bit like a petrol head, getting into using the neurons to fly the ship, and it's slowly killing the captain, and addicted to this adrenaline, and because her adrenaline's running out, she's having to have these kind of adrenaline shots to keep her going. So we've got loads of kind of educational, social stories going on here. Then we've got the doctor running about, trying to catch this gremlin, trying to sort out this bomb, and generally trying to make sense of everything, just as much as the viewer is. What I'd like to kind of focus in on is where I think there are problems with this particular episode. This is not the best episode of the series, I think. Some of the educational elements, the pregnancy, the discussions going on there, really felt a bit like an episode of Jeremy Kyle. Okay, in America it would have been Jeremy Springer, whatever his name is. Springer. Is it Jeremy Springer? Springer, yeah. Where you get sort of, they put couples up and there's these big reveals of different things happening. Kind of had elements of that with the pregnancy and the you know, father issues. So the biggest problem with this episode, it's just an absolute mess of ideas. It's like swimming through spaghetti. There's threads coming in, threads going out. There's lots of different things happening, but it's fired at you so quickly, and then you get that long section where Ryan and Graham and Yaz independently have these kind of slower scenes. I think there was a moment where the doctor said, oh, we've got 7 minutes. Okay, Chibnall loves a clock, doesn't he? We've got 7 minutes to sort this problem out, and what do? Yaz and Ryan, they stand around and have a bit of a chat about his dad. Really? Really? I can't get my head around that bit. So it's just a complete mess. It doesn't really know where it's going. Everybody in this episode seems off their game. The only person that doesn't seem off their game is once again Graham. Graham seems to have a grounded performance. Bradley Walsh seems to be the only one who can glide his way through this episode without any problem whatsoever. That is because of his history of acting and how good he is actually holding the whole thing together. The rest of them seem to be off their game this week, including Jodie Whittaker. Totally unbelievable in every sense of the word. I think there was just one scene, which escapes me at the moment which bit it was, but there was just one scene where I thought, yeah, I can believe that works. But the rest of it was just off. And I'm going to come back to this that I thought we'd gone over. The exposition is awful. It is terrible. We've got to get away from this explanation of everything that's happening on screen. If it's happening on screen, you do not need to tell the audience what is going on. Do not treat your audience like a bunch of morons. We know it's a series that's for adults and for children, but even children can actually understand most of the things that you're actually explaining. Perhaps some of the more unusual parts, like the idea of this Neuro Pilot, wasn't really explored properly, and it took me a while to kind of understand that aspect of it, but that's brushed over. But the very simple things that you are constantly explaining totally reminds me of how Big Finish writes some of their stuff. Now, to Big Finish's credit, the reason why they do that is because they are painting a picture for the audience. There's no visual. So the audience listening to the story has to have some form of exposition, and they do it very, very, very well. They know how to subtly introduce exposition to paint a picture without it feeling quite clunky. But there are elements of artistic license, if you know what I mean, in that sometimes they will explain to me and it doesn't sound quite natural, but you accept that because you've lost the visual. And because you've lost the visual, you have to substitute that somewhere within the dialogue. And they find the finest route through that. This, you've got the visual. You've got the sound design. You've got all the effects and the music and everything to create an emotion with the people that are watching this story, and yet you still constantly clunk your way through it. Now, this episode said right at the beginning, written by Chris Chibnall, so I hold you personally responsible for this absolute mess. I've been quite happy with this series all the way through and allowed it to ride along with the odd problem here and there. Let it go, it's fine. It was going okay. We're now halfway through this series and I cannot see that Chris Chibnall knows what he's doing. He needs to sort it out, give a proper direction to the actors and actually explain to them what it is they're doing. We've had 5 weeks now of this ongoing style, and now I'm beginning to feel that the Doctor doesn't feel like she's got an absolute back history of 12 other incarnations behind her. Yes, you can throw the odd line in. Yes, you can say the odd thing that kind of links back to something in the past. But all of that knowledge and doctorishness is lost there. It looks like you're watching somebody who's never even seen a spaceship, let alone got involved in so many conflicts over the years. I'm not buying it at the moment. So this episode may have been the first one filmed. I don't know. That may be why it's off kilter compared to the other 4. But this is the worst episode so far for me. You may disagree with that. You may think it was great. But what did you think? Did you think it was a great episode? Did you think that the story was better than how I'm putting it across here? Do you think I'm talking complete nonsense? Why don't you please tell me something about it below? Don't just watch this video, tell me about it. I want to know what you think. That's the important thing. What did you think about it? Like the page, subscribe, and we'll get more material out to you very soon, and we'll see you next time with episode 6. Take care. Stop! Wait. You'll notice the scarf's gone. That's continuity for you. Before I go, I forgot to score it. I got so into my rant, I totally forgot my score. The score for this one, and I'll do it very, very quickly. I don't need to explain why. This is a measly 5 out of 10. I may re-rank these when we're finished, but at the moment it's sitting at a 5. That's not good. So, that's the score done. We'll see you all again soon. This time, take care.